Welcome to my sewing channel, Geri in Stitches. Here's how I hand sew a button and create a shank for it quickly and efficiently. Start with a double threaded needle and tie a knot at the end. The button that I'm using today has two holes, and I am positioning it in such a way that these two holes of the button straddle the center line of the garment. After spacing the buttons properly, I go to the exact position of the button that I am about to sew. Make a mark for the button placement. Next, make a fold at the center line, then sew a stabilizing stitch at the fold of the marked position. And here's a reminder, if you like this content, please don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. Now I'm going to place the button with the bottom hole directly on top of the stitch that we just made. Next, secure this position of the button by sending the needle through the top hole from behind, then send the needle through the bottom hole from the front, catching a sliver of fabric fold that is positioned right next to the bottom hole. Repeat the stitching a few more times to strengthen the button's positioning, taking care to catch the fold of the fabric every time the needle is sent through the bottom hole. I like to do this about 4 or 5 times. By the way, the whole demonstration of this sewing technique is done in real time without any cuts or edits or speeding up of the video. This is to give you a sense of how easy this technique is, and with practice, I reckon that every button can be sewn on in less than 3 minutes. Because of the way that I've positioned the button while sewing, this creates a longer stitch length that allows the button to shift and jiggle slightly at this point in time, and that's a good thing. Now we're going to wind the thread around the button several times to create a shank right behind the button, while strengthening the stitches that connect the button to the garment and closing up the slack created by the longer stitches. Finish off by sewing a knot. I like to do this by making a small stitch close to the shank and winding a few rounds around the needle and pulling the needle through to secure the knot. The last thing to do is to hide the ends of the thread by passing the needle between two layers of fabric and then cutting off the threads. Creating a shank for flat buttons is an essential step when sewing them to a garment because this creates the space that is needed to accommodate the layers of fabric directly behind the button when the garment is buttoned up. This prevents puckering or tightness around the button, allowing the fabric to hang properly. I know that there is a button sewing function in many domestic sewing machines, but it is unable to create the shank that is required for properly sewn buttons. And that's why the only way to do it for me is to hand sew them on. For this project, there were 7 buttons that I had to sew all in all, and I managed to complete the task for all the buttons within 20 minutes. I hope that you like this sewing technique as well and that you will use it. Happy sewing!